At 56 years old, most artists are expected to slow down, tone it down, or quietly fade into legacy status. But Jennifer Lopez just did the opposite, and the way she did it caught everyone off guard. In the middle of her brand new Las Vegas residency, under the brightest lights and in front of a packed crowd, she didn't just sing or dance, she stopped everything to address the one thing people online never seem to stop talking about. And what she said next instantly lit up social media. For years, critics have had the same complaint. Not about her music, not about her performances, but about her body, her clothes, and her refusal to act her age. The comments have followed her across decades, platforms, and phases of her career, and lately they've only gotten louder. But instead of ignoring them this time, Jennifer Lopez decided to say exactly what was on her mind, uncensored, unfiltered, and unapologetic. The moment didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel like a PR move. It felt raw, almost like she'd finally had enough. The audience didn't know what was coming. One second, they were watching a polished, high-budget Vegas spectacle. The next, they were watching a global superstar casually dismantle years of criticism with a single bold statement, one that made some people cheer, some people gasp, and others rush straight to their phones. Within hours, clips from the show were everywhere. Fans praised her confidence. Critics accused her of doing too much. And once again, the internet found itself arguing over the same tired question: why does Jennifer Lopez still make people so uncomfortable? What made this moment hit harder wasn't just what she said, it was when she said it. This wasn't a late-night interview or a carefully edited post. This was opening night of a Vegas residency that had been months in the making. A moment meant to celebrate her legacy, her longevity, and her place in pop culture history. Instead, it turned into something else entirely. Because this wasn't just about fashion, it wasn't just about age, and it definitely wasn't just about a single outfit. This was about control, about ownership, about a woman who spent decades in the spotlight, finally making it clear that she's done shrinking herself to make other people comfortable. And whether people loved it or hated it, one thing was obvious: she wasn't asking for permission anymore. What makes this even more interesting is that this clapback didn't come during a low point in her career. Quite the opposite. Jennifer Lopez is headlining another major Vegas residency following one of the most successful runs in the city's history. She's still selling out shows, still dominating headlines, and still managing to stay relevant in an industry that's quick to replace women once they hit a certain age. And yet, no matter how much she accomplishes, the conversation always seems to circle back to the same thing: her body, her clothes, her confidence. That's why this moment felt different. Because instead of dodging the criticism or laughing it off like she's done before, she addressed it head-on. She repeated the comments people leave about her, the ones questioning why she dresses the way she does, the ones suggesting she should cover up now that she's older, and then she delivered a response that made it clear she wasn't interested in playing by those rules anymore. The crowd loved it, but the internet exploded. Some people called it empowering, others called it unnecessary, and a few accused her of trying too hard to stay relevant. But buried beneath all of that noise was a much bigger conversation, one that's been building around Jennifer Lopez for years. Why is her confidence still treated like a problem? Why does her age suddenly come with a list of expectations? And why does a woman owning her image still feel threatening to so many people? This Vegas moment wasn't random. It didn't happen in isolation. It was the result of years of scrutiny, pressure, and constant commentary that never really stopped, even when she was at the top of her game. And once you look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that this clapback wasn't just about shutting down critics. It was about drawing a line. Because Jennifer Lopez has always understood one thing better than most people realize: attention is currency. And if people are going to talk anyway, she'd rather control the narrative than let it control her. But what led up to this moment? Why did she choose this show, this stage, and this exact moment to finally say something? And why are so many people reacting like this crossed some invisible line she was never supposed to cross?
The answers aren't as simple as they seem, and once you look at the criticism she's faced, the fashion moments that sparked outrage, and the expectations placed on women like her, this Vegas clapback starts to feel less like a joke and more like a statement years in the making. Because what happened next didn't just stay on that stage, it followed her everywhere. The night was supposed to be about celebration.
Opening night in Las Vegas isn't just another show, especially not for someone like Jennifer Lopez. The debut of Up All Night Live was meant to mark another milestone in a career that's already spanned decades. The venue was packed, the energy was high, cameras were everywhere, and expectations were already sky high before she even stepped on stage. From the moment the lights came up, it was clear this wasn't going to be a low-key performance. The production was glossy and theatrical, the kind of polished spectacle Vegas audiences expect from a global superstar. Sequins caught the light, music thundered through the room, and Jennifer Lopez did what she's always done best: command attention without even trying. But then, something unexpected happened. Midway through the show, she slowed things down. Not with a ballad, not with a costume change. She stopped to talk, and the shift in energy was immediate. This wasn't a rehearsed speech or a planned monologue. It felt spontaneous, almost like she'd been carrying something with her and finally decided to let it out. She started by acknowledging the online noise, the comments, the opinions, the things people feel comfortable saying when they're hidden behind a screen. She made it clear she'd been seeing them for a long time, and while she joked about laughing some of it off, there was no mistaking the underlying message. She was aware. She repeated the criticisms almost word for word, the same ones that pop up under photos, interviews, and performance clips. Questions about why she always dresses like that, why she doesn't dress her age, why she's always naked. The kind of comments that follow women in entertainment far longer than they follow men. Then came the response. It wasn't polished, it wasn't softened, and it definitely wasn't something people expected to hear in the middle of a Vegas residency opener. With a grin and zero hesitation, she delivered a blunt NSFW-leaning clapback that immediately sent the room into chaos. The crowd erupted. Some laughed, some cheered, and others stood there stunned, realizing they'd just witnessed a moment that wasn't going to stay inside that theater. To drive the point home, she didn't just say it, she owned it. Turning slightly, she gave the audience a quick, playful glimpse of her outfit, making it clear that she wasn't embarrassed, defensive, or backing down. It was confident, intentional, and completely on her terms. Within seconds, phones were up, clips were being recorded, and by the time the show ended, that moment had already escaped the building. What made this stand out wasn't just the boldness of what she said, it was where she said it. This wasn't an interview chair or a red carpet soundbite. This was her stage, her show, her residency, a space where everything is carefully curated, until suddenly it wasn't. And that's exactly why it hits so hard. Vegas residencies are usually about legacy. They're about proving an artist still has it. They're about nostalgia mixed with reinvention. But this moment flipped that script entirely. Instead of leaning into safe territory, Jennifer Lopez chose confrontation. Not aggressive, not bitter, but unapologetically honest. By the next morning, social media was flooded with reactions. Fans called it empowering, comment sections filled with praise about her confidence and refusal to be boxed in. Others weren't as impressed. Critics accused her of being attention-seeking or inappropriate. Some questioned whether it was necessary at all. But whether people loved it or hated it, one thing was clear. Everyone was talking about it. And that's what made this moment bigger than a joke or a viral clip. It exposed how deeply people still feel entitled to comment on her body, her age, and her choices. It also raised a question no one could ignore anymore. Why is this still such a problem? Because if this had been a younger artist, it would have been brushed off as playful confidence. If it had been a male performer, it likely wouldn't have made headlines at all. But because it was Jennifer Lopez, 56 years old, still performing at the highest level, it suddenly became controversial. And that reaction only added fuel to the fire. Because the truth is, this wasn't the first time she'd heard these comments, not even close. This was just the first time she decided to answer them this directly in front of thousands of people,
with no filter. And once she opened that door, there was no closing it. Because the criticism she addressed that night didn't start in Vegas, it's been following her for years. The comments Jennifer Lopez called out on that Vegas stage didn't appear overnight. They didn't start with one outfit, one performance, or one viral clip. They've been following her for years. And what's interesting is that the criticism was never really about talent. It wasn't about whether she could sing or dance or sell out arenas. Those arguments had already been settled decades ago. Instead, the focus slowly shifted to something far more personal, her appearance. More specifically, how comfortable she seemed in her own skin. Early in her career, that confidence was praised. Headlines called her fearless, stylish, a trendsetter. Her fashion moments were dissected, celebrated, and copied. But somewhere along the way, the tone changed. The same boldness that once made her iconic started being framed as a problem. The shift became more noticeable as she got older. Comments began popping up more frequently under her photos and performances, subtle at first, then not so subtle. People questioning why she still dresses like that, suggesting it was time to tone it down, implying there was an invisible expiration date she should be paying attention to. And it wasn't just random trolls.
These critiques started showing up in think pieces, comment sections, and even mainstream conversations. The word age kept getting dragged into discussions that had nothing to do with it, as if turning a certain number was supposed to come with a dress code. What made it even more frustrating was the double standard. Male performers her age could take the stage shirtless, messy, or completely unfiltered, and it would be framed as charisma or rock star energy. But when Jennifer Lopez stepped out in something daring, the conversation immediately shifted to whether she was doing too much. That pressure builds over time, because when you're constantly being told to shrink, cover up, or adjust yourself to make others comfortable, it starts to feel less like feedback and more like control. And for someone who spent decades crafting her image, that kind of commentary hits differently. Social media only amplified it. Every performance clip became a debate. Every red carpet look turned into a comment war. Fans defended her, critics doubled down, and the same tired phrases kept resurfacing. Act your age, dress your age, why is she always naked? The irony is that none of this stopped her from succeeding. She kept releasing projects, she kept performing, she kept showing up. But the noise never fully went away. If anything, it became part of the background hum of her career, always there, waiting to resurface whenever she made headlines. And the more visible she stayed, the louder it got. Because Jennifer Lopez has never faded into the background. She doesn't disappear between projects. She doesn't quietly age out of the spotlight. She remains present, active, and unapologetically visible. And for some people, that visibility itself seems to be the problem. What rarely gets talked about is how exhausting that kind of scrutiny can be. Imagine knowing that no matter how successful you are, no matter how hard you work, there will always be people more focused on how much skin you show than what you've accomplished. Imagine being reduced to outfits instead of achievements, especially after decades in the industry. And yet, she kept handling it the same way for a long time, by laughing it off, by ignoring it, by choosing not to engage. She's said before that experience teaches you what's worth responding to and what isn't. And for years, she let most of it slide. But silence has a funny way of being mistaken for agreement, or weakness, or permission. And over time, the comments didn't slow down, they escalated. Because the internet has a way of testing boundaries. When no one pushes back, the criticism gets bolder, harsher, more entitled. And eventually, it reaches a point where staying quiet feels like accepting the narrative being written about you. That's what made the Vegas moment feel different. It wasn't about one outfit or one joke. It was about years of being told directly and indirectly that confidence has an age limit, that desire for visibility should come with conditions, that at some point women are expected to step aside and soften themselves. And Jennifer Lopez wasn't willing to do that. Because for her, style has never been accidental. It's always been tied to control, branding, and self-expression. The same confidence people criticize now is the same confidence that built her career in the first place. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If this criticism has followed her for so long, why does it still surprise people when she finally answers back? And maybe more importantly, why does her refusal to change still make so many people uncomfortable?
Because once you understand how long this pressure has been building, that Vegas clapback stops looking impulsive. It starts looking inevitable. And what she said next didn't just shut down critics, it reignited a much bigger conversation about who gets to decide what's appropriate and who doesn't. When Jennifer Lopez finally said it out loud, the room changed instantly. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't sound angry. If anything, she sounded amused, like someone who'd heard the same tired comments so many times they'd stopped being irritating and started being ridiculous. That calm delivery made what came next hit even harder. She repeated the criticism exactly as people write it online, the questions about why she dresses the way she does, the accusations that she's always naked, the suggestion that she should cover up now that she's older. And instead of defending herself with a long explanation, she responded with a single, blunt line that left no room for misinterpretation. It was cheeky, it was confident, and yes, it was NFW enough to make headlines. The audience exploded. Some people laughed instantly, others gasped. A wave of cheers rolled through the theater as it sunk in that she wasn't joking around this time. This wasn't a polished celebrity answer or a carefully worded response designed to avoid backlash. It was raw, off the cuff, and very much on her terms. Then she doubled down. With a playful turn and zero hesitation, she leaned into the moment physically, making it clear she wasn't embarrassed, defensive, or trying to soften the message. The gesture wasn't vulgar, it was intentional, almost theatrical, like punctuation at the end of a sentence she'd been holding in for years. That's when the phones really came out.
By the time the show ended, clips of that moment were already circulating. Short videos, cropped captions, and reaction posts started spreading across platforms within hours. By morning, it was everywhere. Headlines focused on the NSFW response, comment sections lit up, and the debate officially began. Some people called it iconic. They praised her for saying what so many women feel but rarely say out loud. They framed it as confidence, freedom, and a refusal to let age dictate self-expression. Fans pointed out that she looked happy, comfortable, and completely in control, something critics conveniently ignored. Others weren't impressed. A wave of backlash followed just as quickly. Some accused her of being inappropriate, others claimed she was trying too hard, a few suggested she should have handled it with more grace, as if confidence needs to be delivered politely to be acceptable. And that reaction revealed everything. Because the response wasn't actually about the language she used, it was about the fact that she used it at all. A woman her age, on her stage, speaking openly and unapologetically about her body without asking for approval. That's what unsettled people. What made the moment go even more viral was how effortless it felt. There was no tension in her delivery, no defensiveness, no hint of insecurity. It wasn't framed as rebellion, it was framed as truth. And that made it impossible to dismiss as a joke or a publicity stunt. This wasn't someone lashing out. This was someone drawing a boundary. And the internet isn't great with boundaries, especially when they come from women who refuse to play the role assigned to them. Within hours, reaction videos started popping up. Commentators broke down her words frame by frame. Some praised her confidence, others questioned whether she crossed the line. And once again, the conversation drifted away from her performance and straight back to her body, which proved her point. Because even when she was headlining a Vegas residency, delivering high-energy performances, and continuing a legacy few artists ever achieve, the focus still landed on how much skin she showed and how comfortable she was owning it. The clapback didn't silence critics, it exposed them. It forced people to confront why they felt entitled to police her appearance in the first place, and it highlighted how quickly confidence gets reframed as arrogance when it comes from someone who refuses to shrink. What's interesting is that Jennifer Lopez didn't follow up with explanations. She didn't post a clarification. She didn't soften the message the next day. She let the moment stand exactly as it was. Because she didn't need to say more. The message had already landed. And whether people loved it or hated it, one thing was undeniable. She controlled the narrative that night. Not the critics, not the comment sections, not the headlines. Her. But this clapback didn't exist in a vacuum. It wasn't just about one night or one response. It tied into something deeper. Her long history of using fashion, visibility, and confidence as tools, not distractions.
And once you look at her past style choices, it becomes clear why this moment felt so powerful and why it was never really about shock at all. To understand why Jennifer Lopez never tones it down, you have to understand that her fashion has never been random. From the very beginning of her career, style wasn't just something she wore, it was something she used. Long before social media turned outfits into headlines, she understood how appearance could shape perception, create moments, and control the conversation. Every era of her career came with a visual identity, and none of it happened by accident. When people accuse her of dressing for attention, they miss the point. Attention has always been part of the job. The difference is that she learned early on how to own it instead of being consumed by it. Fashion became one of the ways she stayed visible in an industry that's quick to move on, especially for women who don't fit into neat, age-appropriate boxes. And she never apologized for that. What frustrates critics the most is consistency. Jennifer Lopez didn't suddenly start wearing bold outfits at 50. She didn't reinvent herself to shock people later in life. She's been doing this the entire time. The only thing that changed was the number attached to her age, and suddenly the same confidence was being framed as inappropriate. That's not a coincidence. There's an unspoken expectation that women should gradually fade from visibility as they get older, tone down the silhouettes, cover more skin, become less noticeable. And when someone refuses to follow that script, it creates discomfort. Not because they're doing something wrong, but because they're breaking a rule no one likes to admit exists. For Jennifer Lopez, fashion has always been about control. Control over how she's seen, control over how she's remembered, and control over the narrative surrounding her body and career. By choosing what she wears, she decides how much of herself she gives to the public, and under what conditions. That's why she doesn't retreat when people criticize her outfits. She leans in. Because backing down would mean letting other people set the terms of her visibility. And after decades in the industry, she's learned exactly what happens when you give critics that power. Her Vegas wardrobe is a perfect example. Every look during the Up All Night residency is intentional. The old Hollywood-inspired gowns, the bedazzled bodysuits, the corseted lace catsuits, each one nods to a different era of glamour while still feeling modern and unapologetically bold. It's not about shock value, it's about range.
She can be elegant and daring at the same time. She can reference classic silhouettes while still pushing boundaries, and that's what makes people uncomfortable. Because it challenges the idea that sensuality has an expiration date, that confidence needs to be softened with age, that visibility must be earned again and again instead of simply owned. What rarely gets acknowledged is the discipline behind it. This isn't someone throwing on outfits without thought. Maintaining that level of physical and mental confidence takes work. Work that often gets ignored or dismissed because it doesn't fit the narrative critics prefer. It's easier to accuse her of trying too hard than to admit she's still operating at a level most people can't. And Jennifer Lopez knows that. She's spoken before about how self-expression and discipline go hand in hand. Fashion, for her, isn't about pretending she's younger. It's about being fully present in the body she has now, without shame or apology. That mindset is exactly why she refuses to dress her age. Because the phrase itself is meaningless. Who decides what a certain age should look like? Who benefits from those rules? And why are they enforced so aggressively on women who refuse to disappear quietly? Her refusal to tone it down isn't rebellion, it's consistency. She's the same artist she's always been, the same performer, the same woman who built her brand on confidence, work ethic, and visibility. The only difference now is that she's no longer interested in softening that message to make others comfortable. And the more she leans into it, the more polarized the reaction becomes. Some people see power, others see provocation. But both reactions come from the same place, the discomfort of watching someone refuse to shrink. And that's why every outfit becomes a headline, every appearance sparks debate, and every performance turns into a conversation about whether she's gone too far. Because for some people, the problem was never the clothes, it was the confidence behind them.
And once you realize that, it becomes clear why her fashion choices don't exist in isolation. They ripple outward, influencing how every public appearance is interpreted, including the ones that spark the loudest reactions online. And as those reactions grew louder, they followed her far beyond the Vegas stage, straight into some of her most talked about appearances off it. The Vegas moment may have pushed the conversation into overdrive, but the buzz around Jennifer Lopez's fashion didn't start there. In the months leading up to the residency, her style choices were already dominating timelines, comment sections, and entertainment headlines, each appearance adding fuel to a debate that never really cooled down. One of the biggest flashpoints came during a high-profile international event that instantly caught the internet's attention. When Jennifer Lopez attended a lavish multi-day wedding celebration overseas, the reaction was immediate. Photos and clips spread fast, not because she was simply present, but because she was performing, and performing in a look that left very little to the imagination. The outfit was bold, intricate, and undeniably glamorous, and just like clockwork, the internet split in two. Supporters praised the craftsmanship, the confidence, and the way she carried herself. Critics zeroed in on the same tired talking points: too revealing, too much, too unnecessary. Once again, the word age entered the conversation, even though no one asked for it. What's important here is how predictable the reaction had become. It didn't matter that the event was celebratory. It didn't matter that she was hired to perform. And it didn't matter that the outfit was in line with high fashion performance standards. The moment her appearance went viral, the commentary followed the same script it always does. And it wasn't just that one outfit. In between major events, even casual holiday photos sparked debate. A festive dinner look, a throwback-inspired dress, a family photo where she looked relaxed and confident. Each one became a reason for strangers to weigh in on what she should or shouldn't be wearing at this stage of her life. What made the situation even more telling was how her male peers were treated during the same time. Artists the same age or older could wear whatever they wanted without it becoming a morality discussion. No think pieces, no lectures, no demands to tone it down. But Jennifer Lopez couldn't step out in a bold silhouette without it becoming a referendum on aging, relevance, and trying too hard. And that double standard didn't go unnoticed by fans.
Social media lit up with defenses, pointing out the imbalance. People asked why confidence becomes controversial when it's paired with femininity, why success isn't enough to earn freedom from scrutiny, and why women are still expected to age quietly, gracefully, and invisibly. Of course, not all reactions were supportive. Some commentators claimed she was intentionally stirring controversy to stay in the spotlight. Others suggested her style was distracting from her talent rather than enhancing it, and a few insisted she should focus more on legacy than visibility, as if the two are mutually exclusive. But those arguments ignore one key fact. Jennifer Lopez has always been visible. From the start of her career, she's understood that presence matters, that staying seen is part of staying relevant, and that letting others dictate how you present yourself only leads to being boxed in. What made these recent reactions feel louder than before was timing. All of this buzz was happening as she prepared for another Vegas residency, a move that already put her under intense scrutiny. Every outfit became a preview. Every appearance was dissected as a sign of what the show would be like. And for critics, her fashion choices became an easy target. But instead of pulling back, she stayed consistent. She didn't issue statements, she didn't explain herself, she didn't suddenly shift her wardrobe to appease anyone. And that refusal to adjust only intensified the conversation. Because when someone ignores criticism completely, it forces people to confront why they're so invested in controlling the outcome. The more people talked, the more it became clear that this wasn't really about clothes. It was about discomfort with autonomy, with a woman choosing visibility without asking permission, with someone refusing to settle into a version of herself that others find more acceptable. And by the time she stepped onto that Vegas stage, all of that context was already there. The comments, the think pieces, the social media debates, the assumptions about why she dresses the way she does. They'd been stacking up for months, maybe years, waiting for a response.
So when she finally addressed it directly, it didn't feel random. It felt like a release. Because the public reactions leading up to that moment had already set the stage for something bigger, a clash between expectations and reality, between who people think she should be and who she actually is. And as the noise kept growing, it raised an unavoidable question. How long can someone stay at the top and stay visible before the pressure to conform becomes unbearable? For Jennifer Lopez, the answer wasn't retreat. It was evolution. And that evolution became even more obvious when you looked at where she was in her career, not struggling, not fading, but standing firmly in a position most artists never reach. Which made the criticism harder to justify and the clapback impossible to ignore. Jennifer Lopez isn't just a performer, she's an institution, a cultural icon whose career has spanned decades, survived shifting trends, and outlasted countless contemporaries. But longevity in the entertainment industry doesn't come without pressure, far from it. Every year on stage, every headline, every outfit carries the weight of expectation. And for someone like J.Lo, that pressure is magnified. When you've been at the top for decades, staying relevant becomes a full-time job. Fans expect new music, new performances, new energy, and critics are always ready to measure whether you're still enough. For Jennifer Lopez, that means walking a constant tightrope, balancing personal expression, artistic evolution, and public perception. Every move, no matter how small, is magnified. Every outfit, every joke, every social media post is up for scrutiny. Vegas residencies themselves are a high-stakes game. They're a proving ground for an artist's legacy, a chance to show that past successes weren't flukes and that the performer still has the charisma, stamina, and stage presence to captivate audiences night after night. And unlike touring shows which rotate cities, a residency is a single stage, under a single spotlight over a long stretch of time, making consistency non-negotiable. There's no hiding behind a bad night or a technical glitch. Every performance matters. Which makes her Vegas clapback even more significant. She didn't address critics off stage or in a carefully edited interview. She did it live in front of thousands while performing a show that demanded her full focus. That level of timing, courage, and composure speaks volumes about the stakes involved. For someone with her reputation, a misstep could have sparked headlines of a completely different kind, questioning her judgment, her taste, or her age. But instead, she took control and reframed the narrative on her own terms. And the pressure isn't just external, it's internal too. Longevity brings its own set of challenges. Maintaining the physical stamina to dance, perform, and hit demanding vocal notes requires discipline. Staying mentally resilient while facing endless scrutiny is no small feat. And sustaining creativity while constantly under the microscope, that can break careers faster than any public scandal. Yet Jennifer Lopez continues to defy those odds, proving that longevity doesn't mean stepping back, it means leveling up.
The tension between public expectation and personal choice is especially clear when it comes to appearance and fashion. Over the years, she's been scrutinized for the same things over and over again, for being daring, for embracing her body, for refusing to fade quietly. In other words, society sets invisible rules for how aging female performers should behave, rules she's never agreed to. And that friction has been simmering for decades, building to moments like her Vegas clapback, where the stakes aren't just about an outfit, they're about asserting autonomy in a world that often tries to deny it. Longevity also brings opportunity. It allows her to reflect, strategize, and own her narrative in a way younger stars often can't. But opportunity and pressure are two sides of the same coin. Staying at the top doesn't mean being safe. It means making bold choices, taking risks, and showing up even when the criticism feels relentless. And every public decision carries an unspoken question. Will it be celebrated or torn apart? That's why her Vegas moment was so powerful. It wasn't just about shutting down critics. It was a reminder of her relevance. At 56, she's not just surviving, she's thriving, performing, and redefining what it means to have a lasting career. Every gesture, every outfit, every statement reinforces the fact that she's still very much in control of her trajectory, even while the world tries to deny it for her.
And it's that tension, the push and pull between public perception and personal choice, that makes the story resonate far beyond celebrity gossip. It's a window into the reality of anyone who has to perform under scrutiny, navigate double standards, and manage expectations that never seem to end. For Jennifer Lopez, the stakes are clear. Stay authentic, stay visible, and stay fearless, because anything less would mean letting others write the story of her career. And after decades at the top, that's simply not an option. Which is why the next chapter, how fans reacted and why they see this as her unfiltered era, becomes just as important. Because it's not only the critics who define her legacy, it's also the audience that supports her every step of the way, amplifying every bold move she makes. For fans, Jennifer Lopez's Vegas clapback wasn't just a single moment of confidence. It marked the beginning of what many are calling her unfiltered era. And that label isn't an exaggeration. It reflects a shift in how she interacts with the public, how she presents herself on stage, and how unapologetically she owns every aspect of her image. Unlike earlier stages of her career where PR carefully curated every move, this era feels more raw, more personal, and more intentional. Fans notice it immediately. The way she addresses criticism head-on, the way she plays with fashion, the way she doesn't soften her statements to fit someone else's expectations. It's a Jennifer Lopez who's fully in charge, and audiences are responding. Social media has been flooded with reactions praising this shift. Clips from her Vegas residency went viral not just because of the outfits, but because of the confidence, humor, and wit with which she delivered her responses. Fans celebrated her for refusing to shrink for anyone, critics included. Memes and posts flooded platforms, framing her as a role model for confidence at any age, inspiring followers to embrace their own boldness. Part of what makes this era so appealing is how relatable it feels, even amidst glitz and glamour. Jennifer Lopez has been under scrutiny for decades, yet she presents her experiences with honesty and humor. Whether she's teasing the audience about online comments, sharing candid moments during holiday celebrations, or showing off a bold performance outfit, fans feel like they're seeing the real J.Lo, not just a polished, untouchable celebrity image. And it's not just fans online who have noticed. Commentators, entertainment writers, and even cultural critics have pointed out that she's redefining expectations for women in entertainment, especially those in midlife. She's refusing to apologize for her confidence, refusing to tone it down, and refusing to let societal rules dictate how she ages. That boldness resonates with fans, who see her as both a trailblazer and a relatable figure simultaneously. This era is also defined by intentionality. Every appearance, every wardrobe choice, every statement seems carefully calculated to send a message. She's in control. She's still relevant. She won't be silenced or diminished, and she's having fun doing it. That combination of mastery and authenticity is why fans are calling it her unfiltered era. It's an era where she doesn't just perform, she performs on her own terms, with no concessions to critics or outdated expectations. And fans have also embraced the humor and cheekiness that comes with this era. The clever clapbacks, playful gestures, and confident body language make her persona approachable yet powerful. She's reminding audiences that age and scrutiny don't have to limit self-expression. Instead, they can become sources of empowerment, humor, and creative freedom. And perhaps most importantly, this era is about resilience. Fans recognize that behind every viral moment is decades of experience navigating criticism, pressure, and high expectations. Her ability to laugh at herself, reclaim narratives, and still deliver world-class performances is what makes this stage of her career so compelling. It's not just entertainment, it's a masterclass in confidence, strategy, and self-ownership.
Some fans even describe this era as inspiring because it challenges societal norms. Women watching her feel encouraged to reject the idea that visibility, confidence, or bold choices should fade with age. The unfiltered era becomes a statement not only about Jennifer Lopez, but about the broader cultural conversation surrounding women, power, and visibility in entertainment and beyond.
The reaction to this era is ongoing, and the dialogue is just beginning. Every Vegas residency performance, every public appearance, and every viral clip adds layers to the narrative. And the more she leans into this unfiltered version of herself, the more polarized and passionate the conversation becomes, proving once again that Jennifer Lopez's influence goes far beyond music, fashion, or social media. Her fans, however, aren't just watching. They're participating. They're sharing clips, defending her choices, debating the double standards, and amplifying her message. This era has transformed passive audiences into active communities who feel connected to her stance on autonomy, confidence, and unapologetic self-expression. Ultimately, the unfiltered era is more than a label. It's a mindset, a cultural movement, a declaration that Jennifer Lopez will continue to set the rules for her career, her image, and her life, regardless of criticism, age, or societal expectation. And for fans witnessing it in real time, it's thrilling, empowering, and impossible to ignore. So, what does Jennifer Lopez's Vegas clapback really reveal? On the surface, it might seem like just another viral moment, another celebrity stirring up headlines, but if you look closer, it's far more than that. It's a snapshot of decades of pressure, scrutiny, and expectation, all culminating in a single, unfiltered statement that tells the world exactly who she is and who she refuses to be. This moment shines a light on something deeper than fashion, age, or celebrity gossip. It reveals the invisible rules women are still expected to follow, even at the highest levels of success. It shows how confidence can be misconstrued as arrogance, how boldness can be mistaken for provocation, and how autonomy is often challenged simply because it's unfamiliar or threatening. It also demonstrates power, real, deliberate power. Jennifer Lopez didn't need to respond to critics. She didn't owe anyone an explanation, yet she chose to speak up on her own stage, on her own terms, using wit, humor, and a carefully curated combination of performance and personality. That is mastery, that is ownership, and that is influence in its purest form. Her fans have seen this, and they recognize it. They call it her unfiltered era, and that's because it embodies honesty, self-expression, and resilience. This era shows what happens when someone refuses to shrink, refuses to apologize for visibility, and refuses to let the world write the story of their life. It's a lesson in autonomy and confidence for anyone watching, not just celebrities. At the same time, the moment exposes the double standards baked into culture. Male performers can age, evolve, and experiment without triggering endless debate about morality or appropriateness. Women, particularly those in midlife, are still held to invisible, arbitrary standards, and those standards are enforced in public comment sections, media coverage, and everyday conversations. By challenging them, Jennifer Lopez isn't just defending herself, she's challenging the rules that constrain countless others. And perhaps the most important takeaway is this: visibility and confidence don't have an expiration date. At 56, Jennifer Lopez is not just surviving, she's thriving, performing at the top of her game, and using her platform to redefine what empowerment looks like. She's reminding the world that style, performance, and self-expression are tools, not weapons, tools for owning your narrative and living life unapologetically. This moment invites us to reflect on our own expectations, of women, of aging, and of success. Why is it still surprising when someone refuses to fade quietly? Why do we scrutinize confidence instead of celebrating it? And how often do we overlook decades of talent, discipline, and hard work in favor of superficial commentary? Jennifer Lopez's Vegas clapback doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't simplify the conversation, but it does force us to ask the right questions about power, visibility, and the courage it takes to exist authentically under constant scrutiny. And in doing so, it transforms a single performance into a cultural statement. Because in the end, this wasn't just about a dress, a stage, or a viral clip. It was about control, about autonomy, about refusing to shrink for anyone. And it was about reminding the world that confidence, talent, and relevance aren't dictated by age or opinion. They're claimed,
defended, and celebrated by those brave enough to stand firm. Jennifer Lopez didn't just clap back at critics that night. She reminded the world what it means to stay true to yourself. And that's a message that will resonate far longer than any headline ever could. If you want to stay updated on every shocking twist in this case and other high-profile stories, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest updates, because in Hollywood, the story is never really over.